Good evening and welcome to the Spirit of Motorsport TV. Tonight's show is interactive and we're proud to say that we're bringing you all of the live off-track chat that we possibly can with some incredible guests joining us in the virtual studio. Remember the interactive experience opportunity. You can join in the chat, send us your questions. I just add it to the live chat and I'll do whatever I can to fire it at our fantastic guests this evening. But also remember, for tonight's show and future shows, you can join us in this virtual setup. You just need to send us a little message. We'll get you set up and you come and join in the conversation. So everyone, thank you once again for joining us. We've been having quite the journey so far, joining in and meeting some incredible riders and characters in and around the paddocks. This evening's show, we are absolutely honoured to welcome the great Tarran Mackenzie from the BSB paddock, of course, and also the fantastic Mckenzie dynasty. So welcome, Taz. Come join us in the studio. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. How are you this evening?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Just sort of preparing for this weekend's second round of BSB at Snetterton.
Yeah, how are you feeling about that?
Good, yeah. The first round didn't go to plan. There was a lot of build-up during lockdown and was really excited to get going at Donnington. Left with 3 finishes, 2 7ths and a 6th, but yeah, it wasn't what I was hoping for really, so try again this weekend.
After such a big build-up of being locked down for so long, how are you feeling going into Donnington, going into that first round? How was your mindset approaching it?
It was tough, just because there was so much anticipation, really. We'd done all the Spanish testing at the start of the year, and then about a week before we were meant to go racing, we got put in lockdown. So, yeah, it was hard doing the 4 or 5 months, however long it was, and then coming back. I did a fair bit of riding when the lockdown rules got lifted, plenty of track days and a few tests. So that sort of was, I maybe had like a month to get bike fit and get riding again, and then yeah, headed out for the first round. So quite anxious, but was really excited to get going and just see all the team again and be back doing what I love.
It's definitely great to see you back out on track as well. So are you going to be able to, well, you feel comfortable explaining what happened that weekend? Because you had some challenges moving through that weekend.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it.
So basically this year, this is my excuse. I don't know what chapter it is in the book, but this year Pirelli have brought out new tyres, which we've had from the start of the year. But from my understanding, they were very similar to last year. So our bike is very similar to last year. So we went with last year's setup basically all through testing. And then as we got to the first round, I was fairly confident that we could put in a similar setting to what we ran last year and what we had learned in testing, and it would be fine because last year I was strong there. And then, yeah, unfortunately had a crash in FP2 and then a crash in warm-up. So it was hard to pick myself up and, had to pick myself up, dust myself down and yeah, head out into the race. The crash in warm-up was difficult because sort of rolled around to the grid, hadn't ridden the bike since the crash. Had to change a few bits, reposition the bars and whatnot, and then go out in the race. And because I was struggling a little bit, I wasn't too far off the front guys, but wasn't as close as I'd like to have been. We were always changing the bike, so going into each race, I was always riding a bike that hadn't ridden through practice, so that was quite difficult, really, trying to understand the bike as the race went on. But I didn't do too bad of a job, but I think definitely at Snetterton, I'd like to be a bit closer to the front.
Awesome. Look at this shot. Love it. Very good. So I just want to share a couple of comments with you, Taz. We've got a couple of comments. One from Pablo Jono saying top fella. Claire Brooks Burnett is saying beautiful man. There you go. There you go. I love this shot from Donnington. It's stunning, isn't it?
Yeah, bit of a dance there.
You look a little bit. I was going to say a little bit. Not so happy under there. You can't disguise that at all. So Taz, I want to go back, if you don't mind. We're going to go back and talk about your debut in the British Superbikes. We're going to go back to 2016, and what an incredible year it was for you.
In the Supersport class?
It is, yeah. So 2016.
Yeah, it was just a bit of a dream year, which I'd like to think it'd happen again, but I don't think it ever will, with the fact that me and Taylor won championships in the same year. Quite hard to win a championship in the same year when we're both racing each other now. But it was sort of, we both went into the year in new classes on new bikes that we hadn't ridden before, and there was no real expectation other than just trying to do our best and improve as the year went on. And we both started the round. I think Taylor won the first race and I finished second in my race. And then it just sort of snowballed from there, really. Had a few downs, but it was mainly ups we had all through the year. And yeah, he won his first championship at Donnington, and then I think I won mine 2 rounds later. So there was a bit of added pressure that he'd won, and mainly for myself, but really wanted to wrap up the championship, which I didn't expect I could. In my first year in the Supersport class, the idea was to always just go into the year and learn as the year went on and try and win a race and try and get a podium. And yeah, I managed to do that, and to win the championship was amazing. So yeah, a bit of a dream year. How
is the rivalry between you and your brother? Is it healthy? Can it get when got to get highly competitive between the two of you?
Yeah, to be fair, it's not too bad now. When we were younger, we were terrible. It was like a competition, running up the stairs who could get up fastest. It was just a bit out of control, really. But as the years have gone on and we've matured and got older a little bit, it has sort of calmed down. And we've had, especially Taylor, he's had a lot of tough years. So it is, when he does beat me or a result that is better than mine, and for me, with roles reversed with Taylor beating Taylor, then we're just happy for each other, because we're brothers at the end of the day, and forget bike racing, we don't want to fall out or have an unhealthy relationship. So it's easy saying that because we haven't actually had like a head-to-head close battle like the Irwin brothers did last week at Donnington, or 2 weeks ago at Donnington. So but yeah, for now it's pretty good, and we're best of friends. We tell each other everything, and we train with each other every day. So so far so good, really. We've done 25 years and we haven't had a fallout yet, so we're not doing too bad.
Good stuff. I've got a good question here for you, Taz, from Pablo once again. Would you consider doing road racing at all? For example, the Northwest and the TT?
No, I don't think I would, just because my mum wouldn't let me. She has enough stress with dad racing for all those years, and then Taylor and now me. So I think if she would allow me to do it, I don't think I'll do it anyway, just because I'm having such a good time at the moment in BSB on the short circuits with good success. So I like watching it. We were saying earlier that I'd love going to the Isle of Man TT. I've never been to the Northwest, but I've heard good things about it. But I prefer standing behind the wall rather than riding on the other side.
Yeah, I can see that. I've also got Paul Townsend. I've got a great question. I'd love to know the answer to this. Are you thinking of going to the World Superbikes in the future?
Yeah, I'd love to, definitely. The idea from when I came back from Moto2 in 2017 to racing in BSB for Yamaha was to sort of learn and do my apprenticeship in BSB and learn how to ride a superbike and understand it. And then if the opportunity was there and I was lucky enough to go to World Superbike, then I'd definitely love to go. This year, I had a wild card planned at Donnington Park in the World Superbike class that Yamaha were supplying a bike for me to race there. So it was, I was really gutted that obviously with lockdown and COVID happening that wasn't available to do. But I think definitely in the future, I'd love to go there. That's the goal, really. And I've got a job to do at the minute at BSB, but hopefully one day it will be a reality.
So I'd love to touch on the Moto 2 as well. So you were in the Moto 2 paddock and before you moved into the British Superbikes or came back. Tell me a bit about how that experience was for you with regards to evolving as a rider.
Yeah, it was tough, definitely. I'd raced a little bit abroad in that paddock with Red Bull rookies when I was a little bit younger, so I knew a lot of the tracks. But it was a real eye-opener, really. Done a lot of short circuit stuff and BSB on sort of road bikes, effectively with road tires. Having to go there to ride a full-on slicks was tough. Sort of rocked up to Le Mans at the first round, not even met the team or ridden the bike, or even my leathers and helmet and everything was different. I just sort of had to go out and try my best. But it was definitely it was character building. Definitely had a lot of crashes, and it was tough. The results weren't as good as I'd hoped for, but it was a really good experience, and it actually played a big part into my riding. And I think in BSB, coming back to BSB, it didn't look great on paper and maybe on the TV, but it was really improving my riding. And I don't believe that I wouldn't have been as strong in that first year in BSB if I hadn't have done Moto 2. So was really grateful for the opportunity that the Kiefer brothers gave me. And the goal was to always try and score a point, and which I managed to do in Japan, which I was really happy with. But I'd love to have done another year there, but had an amazing opportunity to come back to BSB with Mckenzie Yamaha. So yeah, can't complain.
You talked about when you were traveling, how for riders in that kind of paddock, it can become quite lonely when you're doing all that traveling with everybody. You had your brother join you.
Yeah, he came to. Dad came to a lot of them, to mainly all the European ones. He actually works in that paddock a few of the rounds, so it was always nice to have him there. The big thing for me was the team was really welcoming. They were a German team, so they all spoke English, and so there wasn't really a language barrier, and we all got on really well. My teammate Dominique Agata was really fun and a great teammate. And then with the BT Sport crew with Neil and Gav and all those guys, they were really nice. We spent a lot of time with Neil. He was always coming in my truck to see how I was getting on and trying to help me. So yeah, it was really nice to have him there. And yeah, Taylor came to a few of them. But yeah, it was such good fun. I love the traveling part. I think if I didn't race bikes, I would have liked to have traveled the world anyway. So the fact that I get to travel and race bikes at the same time was pretty cool.
Amazing. Great. So we have a couple more questions for you here, Taz, if I can share that with you. So we got Claire Brooks Burnett. How does it feel riding with no fans? Does the atmosphere hit you around the track normally?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit different.
Yeah.
Mainly in the paddock, I'd say, because when you're on the bike, you're not really focusing on the outside of the track. But in the paddock, it's different. It just feels like testing in Spain, really, when no one comes to watch. It's just sort of the BSB teams there. But yeah, it's hard because obviously they can't come, but Eurosport put a good show on the TV, so they never miss any of the action. But on the slowing down lap, I think is probably the weirdest thing, because I didn't get a good result at Donnington, but I can imagine if you had a good result at Donnington, there's no one to cheer you on really, or wave to on the slowing down lap. So just the marshals. So yeah, it's definitely different. My weekends are probably a little bit less quiet. More quiet. I know on race day it's quite hectic doing interviews and going to hospitality to meet all the sponsors and stuff. It was quite weird actually after race one just to sort of chill out in the motorhome and not have any of that. So I was quite happy with that, because I had my bottom lip out after each race, so I didn't have to go and speak to any sponsors, which was quite a nice thing. But yeah, we do really miss them, and it definitely, I think BSB, the fans make it really. So they're really passionate people. So yeah, gutted that they can't come, but hopefully it won't be too long.
Great, thank you. We've got Patrick Kitchen has got a trivia question for you. You ready for it?
Yeah.
Who was your dad's teammate in 1989 and what bike? Ooh.
Oh, that's a good question. I would say Wayne Gardner. maybe. I've probably got that wrong. Or maybe Freddie Spencer on a Yamaha bike. I hope I've got that right, because he'll probably... There you go. Yeah, got it right. Eventually.
Thank you. Fantastic producer Aid. Wonderful.
Dad's actually got a story about that picture. He got he left Honda at the end of that year, sacked, and he went to that photo shoot to do that picture, but as far as he was concerned, Freddie Spencer wasn't racing, and he walked into the room and Freddie was there with all the team clothing on, and he didn't realise that Freddie Spencer was going to be his teammate, so he got a bit of a surprise, and I think quite a nice surprise, because I think he quite liked him. So yeah,
great picture as well. Look at that bike, awesome. Okay, we've got one. Nick Pearson, he says you would be great in the World Superbikes and have the skill, ability and talent to mix it with the best. Just keep focusing and it will come, I am sure.
Thank you.
Yes, excellent. So tell us, I do want to touch on the family, because obviously it goes way back, being on bikes in the family with your dad's history, his all the titles that he's taken. Now, I did read that your dad wasn't responsible for getting you boys on the bike. Is that right?
No. It was a bloke called Alan McIntosh from Scotland that imported mini motos called which was a brand called Pellini. And I don't know how the story quite went, but I think it was basically we had like just copy mini motos that were just cheap Chinese like copies, really, that we used to ride around in the garden. And Dad took Taylor to a go-kart track, I think at Knockhill in Scotland, and or Alan had heard that Taylor was riding around on this Chinese mini moto, and he wasn't happy, so he really kindly sent a mini moto to the house to basically say, like, get your son on a proper bike, stop letting him ride around on that. So I thought you were going to bring up a different picture. That's actually a different bike. That's the bike we learned to ride on, but yeah, that we were a little bit older after that picture. But yeah, he sent a bike down, and it just sort of the snowball effect. I was the younger brother that wanted to do what big brother did all the time, and yeah, Taylor got into riding this bike around a go-kart track, and then we got the leathers and the helmet, and it wasn't the idea of sending. I know some parents are like, I'm going to live my dream through my kids, and I'm going to take them bike racing, and hopefully they become the next Valentino Rossi. But it wasn't like that. It was just a little bit of fun, something to do. We'd go on a Tuesday night, and yeah, it was just another hobby, really. We still played plenty of sports. We were still playing football and rugby on the weekends. But yeah, it just sort of spiraled, and then Taylor got a little bit older, and then he sort of made friends in the sort of the bike paddock, and then they were jumping on bigger bikes. So then Taylor got a big bike, and then I was old enough to ride Taylor's bike. So it just sort of went from there, and yeah, just got well out of hand, and we're here maybe like 15 years later, and we're really lucky to call it as a job now. But yeah, it wasn't. It was I'd blame it on Alan McIntosh. It wasn't Dad's fault.
Love it. No, how old are you there?
I think we've got the three fingers up, which I couldn't understand how to do it. But I think that was after Dad had won his third title. I think we were going on that's in the airport. We were going on holiday to sort of. Dad was going. Well, we all went as a family to celebrate his third championship. So that would have been 1998. So I would have been 3.
Wow. Now, I hear that your dad did put some rules in place if you guys were going to follow it as a career. He said, behave at home. Is that right?
Yeah.
Do well at school?
Yeah. They're still the rules now. It was always just try hard at school. Taylor was really academic at school, whereas I just tended to like, my favorite time at school was the lunch break and going home. But Taylor really enjoyed school. So yeah, it was more aimed at me. The behavior side was probably both of us at home, but yeah, the trying hard at school was probably more aimed at me, really. But I'm glad he did it, because I genuinely wasn't interested in school, especially the older I got. I was more interested in bike racing, and all I wanted to be was a bike racer. So he did make me try hard, but yeah, 16. As soon as I got to leave those school gates, I was a happy boy.
Racing cars, love that. Great, love it. And your mum as well. So we did talk briefly just before we came on air on your mum following you around in the races, and even getting involved in working with the team and hospitality, and in you and your brother's team. So
yeah,
quite supportive from both sides, right?
Yeah, it's really nice. I know some bike racers where the parents or the mum, they're just not interested in it because they don't want them to do it really. But she had enough stress through with dad through bike racing, and I think the last thing she probably wanted was her kids to do the exact same. But as mums go, she's really good. She's obviously been there and done it all with dad, so she understands it really well. And yeah, she sort of just stands in the background really, and yeah, she's really supportive. She this is the first, or one of the first years she hasn't worked in the paddock, not because of COVID, but she normally works in the hospitality. But she's not working this year. She's staying at home with Maisie, our Cocker Spaniel. So she's coming this weekend to watch Snetterton. But yeah, she's really supportive, and yeah, really understanding, which is nice. Whenever we've had a crash or an accident and we're in the medical centre, she's probably the most calm there. Whereas I know some mums would be freaking out, but yeah, she's really good with us. And it's similar rules now. We've got to behave at home and do our chores, and we can go bike racing on the weekend. So yeah, she's really good.
Very good. I have a couple more comments here for you, Taz. So we've got Nick Pearson saying, "Who needs school when you have your skill and ability?" There you go. Thank you, Nick. And also he says, "Jan did a fantastic job in the McCann's hospitality. Absolutely brilliant." Okay, so he sampled it.
Yeah, she makes sure she does a good job. I think maybe there's a bit of pressure because I'm riding for the team as well, but yeah, she really enjoyed it. The McCann's team, the McCann's sponsor, Tina and James and Mark, they bring a lot of guests on the weekend, so it is a really good atmosphere in the hospitality, and the athlone, the food they put on is really nice. So it makes mum's life a lot easier in the hospitality when there's nice guests. So she really enjoyed it, but she prefers sitting at home and watching it.
Oh, brilliant. Good. Okay, so I just want to touch on, obviously, aspirations for the future. Now, your dad's picked up quite a few podiums along the way, and titles along the way. What are your aspirations moving forwards? What would be the dream for you? We have touched on a couple of things already, but what's the ultimate?
I think the ultimate goal is just to get to World Superbike, really. I'd love to go to MotoGP if it was possible, but I think now it seems like each year it gets tougher in a way where there's like young riders, like I'm 24 now, and there's Fabio Quartararo who's 20 years old and he's like a favourite to win the MotoGP World Championship. So that side of things is probably a little bit tougher going there, but I think the biggest goal for me is to get to World Superbike, and I'd love to be known as a really competitive World Superbike rider. There's lots of Brits that have come through sort of the route that I'm currently doing with BSB. So yeah, I'd love to go there one day. And I think it's definitely possible. At the moment, this year it might be a little bit tougher with Corona, but I think I just need to carry on doing what I've been doing, try and get as many good results as possible. And then, yeah, hopefully one day I can get there. But at the moment, the goal for me is to try and be British Superbike champion. And that was the goal since riding there in 2018, was to try and be champion. Had a really strong start to the year last year, and then had a few tumbles and a few injuries, which made it a little bit harder. But I think this year is a little bit different with COVID, and there's no showdown, so it makes it more interesting. But I think in my opinion, I'm in the best team in British Superbike and on a very competitive bike. So yeah, no excuses really.
Pretty exciting, hey. I also, if we've got a couple more questions before we do move on to the fans, I want to ask a personal question actually. What's a favorite track? What's your favorite track that you've raced on, and what's your favorite one that you might have traveled to with your dad as well in the past?
The favorite track in BSB is it's torn between Brands GP and Knockhill. Knockhill, I love going there since I was young in Scotland. I've had really good results there in all classes, so that's probably why I enjoy it. The track's really small and you don't get a rest, so it makes for really competitive racing. And then for when I did Red Bull Rookies or Moto2, I rode a lot of tracks, but I think Aragon in Spain was a really cool track to ride. It's quite a modern track compared to some of the others, but yeah, really enjoyable. It's got a bit of everything: slow corners, fast corners, tight and twisty bits. So yeah, it was really cool to ride there. But I can't. There's no bad track really. There's a lot of good tracks all over the world. So yeah, really enjoy those ones.
And what about a track that you would love to ride in the future coming up if you were to progress and move forwards?
That's a good question, actually. I'd really like to ride Qatar in Doha, which is under the lights. There was one track I didn't get to race at in Moto2, but yeah, really, really wanted to go there. It looks like a really fun track to ride, and yeah, to ride at night in the lights would be pretty cool too.
Great. Okay, Pablo's getting really involved in the questions this evening. I love it, Pablo. Thank you. Did you see that crash at Red Bull Ring in Austria at the weekend?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Well, there was two big crashes. I think the Moto2 was it was just unfortunate the way that happened. Coming out the turn one, a few riders were unsighted. But luckily, out of both crashes, I think the biggest thing that no one was hurt, which was yeah, amazing because they were so close. And the MotoGP crash I've ridden that track in Red Bull Ring, and it is really hard when you go down the back straight and it sort of kinks left. On a Moto2 bike and a Moto3 bike, you sort of go through there flat out, and then you can sort of do all your braking upright. But I think on a MotoGP bike, you sort of come through that left, and then sort of having to do your braking on the side of the tyre when you leant over. So yeah, it was obviously I wasn't on the bike, so I can't really comment on what happened. But yeah, it looked like to me that Zarco just came across and probably ran too wide, and Morbidelli had nowhere to go and ended up running in the back of him. So they classed it as a racing incident, which I think it was, but I think it was more unfortunate for Morbidelli because he sort of got his nose chopped off and didn't have anywhere to go really. But yeah, for the bike to come through and just skim past Valentino was yeah, really, really close and really scary. So, but typical bike racer just sort of brushed it off the shoulder and went back out, and I think he finished fifth, which is amazing. So, but yeah, really scary, and hopefully they're racing there this weekend, but hopefully there's none of those shenanigans happening.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. We also have Michael Pursglove. He says, are you good mates with any local riders here in the Midlands?
Yeah, there's a few people that stay around here. I went to school. He doesn't race now, but the Sean Winfield and Gary Winfield, Gary Winfield now runs the Tag Yamaha team, and Sean rides for the Tag Yamaha team. Sean was in Taylor's year at school, and I was in Gary's, and I always used to sit next to Gary in class. It was quite hard to concentrate because we were both racing bikes, and that's all we're interested in really. But yeah, there's a few people around here now. I think James Ellison, Jake Dixon, James Rispoli, when he was over here from America, he lived there. I've probably forgotten a few. And yeah, we don't really see. It's hard. We don't really see each other when we're here. But Taylor's probably the main person that I have to see, unfortunately, week in, week out. But yeah, it's a really good place. I think the Midlands for tracks. Not really far away from a lot of tracks, really. So yeah, it's a good place to live.
Awesome. And one other one from a fan, Chris Holder. Any comments about Andrew Irwin's move last weekend?
Yeah, again, it was tough. I think Josh was maybe a little bit unsighted with Andrew coming through and probably didn't expect to make contact with him. It's really hard to pass at the top of Craner, so Andrew did well to get alongside Josh. But I think maybe Josh just wasn't expecting it, and then they ended up having to come in together. Maybe if Josh had seen it a little bit earlier, he could have sat up. And yeah, it was just Andrew got a big penalty for it, having to start at the back of the grid for next weekend. So yeah, I'm sure he didn't intend to go in there and knock Josh off. So it was really unfortunate on that side. But yeah, Josh was really lucky to not have any injuries, because it is really fast at the top of Craner where he went down. So yeah, a bit of it was a hard move, but that's, I think, in Andrew Irwin's blood, that he doesn't do a little sensible move. It's always quite hard, but I think that's why he was probably so strong over the weekend, because he was making hard but firm moves. He wasn't making contact, and he was really fast all weekend. It was just, I don't think, well, he obviously didn't intend to hit Josh. It was unfortunate on that part, but yeah, he had a slap on the wrist, and yeah, he's got to be a bit more careful now, I'd say.
Great, thank you. And Bren Cosley asks, I'd love to know the answer to this as well. Who's your favourite rider of all time? Obviously.
Say that again.
Oh, your dad?
Bomber Dad. Yeah. I don't really picture Dad as a racer. He's more of just the embarrassing dad growing up, really. But I think if I had an all-time favourite, it would definitely be Valentino Rossi. Just for his personality and what he's done in bike racing, and he's still 41 or 42 years old, and he's still racing and finishing on the podium is unbelievable.
Great. Okay, so we've got a fan for you, Taz. So Alan is going to be joining in the studio. He might have a question or two for you as well.
Yeah.
Alan, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Good evening, Alan. Welcome.
I know, Alan.
Hey, Taz, how are you doing?
Yes, good, thank you.
Good. What's your quick question? Yeah, quick question for you, Taz.
Yeah.
What's been the coldest, wettest race you've ever had in Scotland?
In Scotland is probably 2016 at Knockhill in my Supersport. When that was actually my first Supersport race I won. It was that cold and wet that the inside of my visor steamed up with 10 laps to go. So it was a tough race, but I think they maybe cancelled a race towards the end of the day. The rain got that heavy, but yeah, that was probably typical Knockhill and Scottish weather.
Yes, it is. Just another quick question for a few of the folk that'll be watching. How important sponsorship for you to run per year?
Yeah, it's for me. When I was younger, it was really, really important, because without sponsors, it wasn't bike racing didn't happen for me. I've got a tight Scotsman as a dad that wasn't willing to put his hand in his pocket sometimes. So yeah, it was really it was tough, definitely, but we had really good sponsors, and some sponsors that have been with us since the first time that we ever went racing. Two of the sponsors, which was really nice. So yeah, I've only got a couple of personal sponsors now, but they're there from when we first went racing. I don't know how long ago, maybe 15 years ago now. So yeah.
Right. Okay. And the Pirelli boys, Harley Stevens and Jason Griffiths, who are good friends of mine and good friends of yours. How important are these guys on race day?
Yeah, it is really important. Jason's always there checking on tyres. I think Harley does more of the social media side of things, but Jason's always there. I sometimes like to go up to him to ask him what riders using what tyre. And yeah, he's really helpful on a race weekend. So on a normal race weekend is probably just sort of plain sailing. You know what kind of tyres you run, especially for the Yamaha. We know that we have to run the softer tyre, so we don't tend to go away from different compounds of tyres. But sometimes when it's maybe a little bit wet, or you don't know, or cold, it's nice to go and bug Jason to see what tyres people are running, which I don't think he should be telling us.
Okay. And what type of budget do you have to work with for tyres for a season for yourself?
I don't honestly know. That's more of a team thing. I know that they're not cheap, because when I've done track days and I've had to buy them myself, they're not cheap. But we
They're
go
not
through
cheap, about £300 a set, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. So we go through about for BSB, you're allocated 6 new front tires and 9 rears. So I'll let everyone else do the math on that. But with 2 riders a year and 12 rounds, it can soon add up.
Right. And what's your thoughts on Rory Skinner, who's another flying Scot?
Yeah, I really like Rory. I've known him since he was really young. And I've known him since he was about this big, but now he's about twice the size of me. But yeah, he's really, really impressive. He had a tough year last year on his super sport bike, but this year I think, well, you could see from testing he was pretty unstoppable every session. I think he was fastest and then won both races. Around a small track, which is hard to pull a big gap, he nearly had, I think, 10 seconds in both races, which is unbelievable. And he's tall, but he's only young still. I think he's maybe 18 or 19 years old. So to be doing that already is really, really impressive. And he was unfortunate a few years ago, I think, winning the British Talent Cup, maybe looking to go to the Grand Prix scene, but I think for whatever reason it didn't happen. But I think now with his size, being on a super sport bike is the best option for him. And I think he could do an amazing job in World Supersport if he got the opportunity, and if not, a really good job in BSB. So yeah.
Okay.
Alan, I've got a question for you. Would you mind? Do you mind me asking? How long have you been a fan of Taz? Have you been following his career since the beginning?
Oh yes, I've supported Taz and his brother Taylor over a few years when I was involved with Douglas Park BMW. Also, Taz and Taylor have been helped over the years by Alan Duffus, Yamaha dealer in Kirkcaldy. So we've all chipped in over the years the best of our ability. If everybody all chips in, it makes life a lot easier for people coming through like Taz and Taylor, etc. So for me, helping and battling to try and get support for these guys over the years hasn't been easy. But you've got to have the enthusiasm behind you to push for Taylor and Taz, the rest of it. And for me, when the pair of them won the Superstock 1000 in the 600 class, what was that, 3 years ago now, 4 years ago?
Yeah, 2016, yeah.
That was a highlight, to go down to Brands Hatch, to be standing there with all the other thousands of fans to see the pair of them win, and actually to see the emotion with father and mother being that ecstatic that the pair of them have both won national championships was amazing. And that's what makes it all worthwhile, you know, especially for me anyway.
Beautiful stuff.
So one other questions for a lot. I mean, what have you done under lockdown to keep yourself fit?
I was saying before we came on, we're really lucky at home to have a little bit of a home gym. And at the back of the house, we have a little dirt track, which I ride a Yamaha TTR on 125. So at the start, when lockdown happened, Mum was hiding the garage keys and wasn't letting us ride. But when the rules got lifted slightly, we were riding there and just keeping ourselves amused, really. We've got a nice little mountain bike sort of park not far from the house, so that kept us amused. But with bike racing, you've got to be fit and do a lot of training. So I do my training with Loughborough University, so they kept me busy during lockdown and kept me fit and sharp for when we came back to racing. So it was definitely tough at times, but we were in a lucky situation, so we couldn't complain.
Good. Well, I hope you do well for the rest of the season.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
I'm sure we'll see you when you're back to Knockhill next year.
Definitely. Cheers, mate.
Okay. Thanks again.
Thank you,
Cheers,
Alan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Fantastic. How great was that? Love it. Love it. I just want to share with you, Claire Brooks Burnett said she was at that round, which was the toughest round for you in Scotland. She said she did a 7-hour drive, and they did cut some of the races short, if that was because of the conditions. And the great Roy Moore, our legendary TT commentator, has commented on an article that was in the Classic Racer today about Mckenzie on. I believe it's about your dad and how his career started, etc. So coming back to that, Taz, just to round up your family memories in racing, is there any particular one that really stands out for you traveling around with the family as a youngster before you're racing yourself?
Yeah, to be honest, I couldn't really remember when I was younger. Sort of dad's career ended in 2000, so I was like 4 or 5 years old. Taylor remembers, he's nearly 3 years older than me, so he remembers a lot of the British Superbike days when dad came back to race there. But it's hard. I probably remember more of when he was doing his commentating side of thing after he retired, going on a weekend with him and standing in the commentary box and watching. And then when he helped British Superbike teams in the past with Crescent Suzuki, going there and getting on the scooter and going to he would go out on track to try and help the Suzuki riders. So I probably remember more of that side of things, which was great fun on a weekend, getting to go with dad and spending some time at a racetrack. So it's funny, 20 years on, he's now standing on the track, on the side of the track, helping me and Taylor. So great memories. Still
causing mischief, I bet, with you as well. So connection with Neil Hodgson, we had him on last week. He was very fond of you and the family. Very in your paddock and waving your flag and encouraging you, supporting you. And as you said, when you were traveling a lot, sometimes he was at the race weekends with you. So how important is it for you to obviously have that connection if the family aren't able to be there, and to have someone like Neil who feels like family to you?
Really nice. He when Neil was younger and he was sort of an up and coming rider, dad sort of took him under his wing to try and help him and steer him in the right direction to try and make him a better bike rider. So I know a few times he went up for a few cold winters in Scotland when we lived there, and dad would take him out training and trying to teach him sort of the things you have to do to become a bike racer. So Neil was really appreciative of that. And then not so much in the early years, but definitely in the later years, when he stopped racing and sort of the past few years, he's been really helpful. We have a WhatsApp group chat that we always talk in, and he's in Moto2 especially. It was really nice to have him there, especially when Taylor or my dad couldn't come out. It was nice that he was always there in the paddock, just to someone to go and have a laugh with and speak to, and it was tough at times, definitely in Moto2. So it was nice just to have him there. And then when we went to Australia, we spent a few days together in Melbourne, which was nice. So really like Neil. He comes around the house every now and then to ride in our back garden. He still thinks he's fast, but we've got the better off him around the track now.
Very good. So looking forward to the weekend then. Snetterton is fastly approaching. How are we feeling about it?
Definitely, really excited to get there. It was a track I performed at well last year, with a podium in race 1, and then it was in a podium contention for race 2, but unfortunately had a little off. But really enjoyed Snetterton, had good memories from there in the past in a lot of classes. So really excited to get there. The weather looks quite good for this weekend, and trying to not forget about Donnington, but put it to the back of my mind and try and be a bit closer to those the guys at the front.
Excuse me. I guess I can't speak. I don't know what's in that water. I guess you're just so grateful to be back on the bike racing as well. So I know it wasn't quite the start to the season that you were hoping for, but you just had so many months out there, didn't you? Just getting towards the end, getting slightly frustrated, just wanting to be back out on the track.
Yeah, it was. It was so nice to be back at Donnington. It obviously didn't go to plan, but I think the positives from the weekend, we improved a lot from the first session, and have a better understanding of the bike and new tyre now. So I think that'll play a part at Snetterton, definitely. I know, speaking with the team, we've got a good plan going into the weekend. So, yeah, going in there with a positive mentality and yeah, just love riding my bike anyway. Even when it's not going right, it's tough at times, but it's riding a motorbike at the end of the day, so I can't complain. And yeah, hopefully I can have a better weekend this weekend and got something to smile about.
Awesome. And as the Yamaha family, 65th anniversary celebrations must have been quite big at home. I know it's not as originally expected, but they must have been huge.
Yeah, Dad's obviously got some really good memories in Grand Prix and in BSB on a Yamaha, and won all 3 of his championships for Yamaha. So I've ridden a Yamaha now since 2017, so I've had quite good memories, especially in British Superbike, and with the McCam's team. So yeah, it was not just in BSB, but in a lot of classes and in different with motocross and off-road. They've had a lot of success, and as well as in World Superbike and MotoGP. So it was a big thing for them being the 65th anniversary. And they've got a good chance of winning all 3 BSB, World Superbike and MotoGP on a Yamaha with Quattararo and the Pata guys and me and Jason. So hopefully it will be bigger celebrations than they first anticipated. And yeah, we can have a strong year. Awesome.
Great. I'm going to share one more comment with you before we leave, Taz. It's Chris Holder. You are a credit to your mum and dad.
Oh, thank you. They'll be happy with that.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, Taz, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and we look forward to inviting you on again and talking about racing more throughout the season. So thanks for your time, and best of luck this weekend. We'll be cheering on, and we won't be in the paddock with you, but we'll be watching online for sure and on the TV and supporting you all the way. Hopefully you'll be celebrating
some of that
like this. Yeah. Exactly. Amazing. Taz, best of luck this weekend, and thanks again.
No worries. Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Remember, this is an interactive experience. Thanks to every single one of you that shared your comments and your questions. Remember, you can join, just like Alan, you can join the next show live with us in this virtual studio. Send us a message and we'll happily get you set up. Thank you for riding with us.